Okay, so I'm delighted to have been joined by Antonio Hill of Oxfam, and I'm hoping you're going to give me your reaction to the talks here. It seems that people are relatively positive, and that many people saying we've got the best we could have hoped for.
Well, I think we have to bear in mind the circumstances, and all considered, it is true that the result has been fairly positive. I think one thing to say is that it's clear from this that the UN process does work, that when it's managed right, it can deliver results. And I think no matter how perfect the process, though, you're never going to get the deal. We were never going to get the deal that we need here in Cancun, and that's because everyone knows that the political conditions required to get greater ambition in emissions cuts, in the level of finance that's pledged, simply doesn't exist just yet. Notwithstanding, I think these talks, have been brought off of life support, not out of danger yet. I think a lot of critical issues. It's going to be a busy year ahead, but a lot of the detail that we've seen here in Cancun is very, very encouraging, and I think really sets a foundation for this regime to take off in the future.
We've just heard from Tim Gore that the emphasis on women concerning the climate fund has kind of been lost from the text. How on earth could that happen? Are there people lobbying to take that out, or has it just been missed out?
Well, I think it's very unfortunate. There still is a reference in the adaptation section that's useful, but I think and I think we did see certainly progress here in that. Earlier, there's all of the references and all the discussion, and whenever you talked with delegations about gender issues, they would refer you to the shared vision section, the kind of chapeau section that's generalities about all kinds of different things. And we were pushing very hard for it to be included directly in the language establishing the new fund. There was a reference as of just 24 hours ago, and somehow in the last slide towards this agreement, it got lost. I think this is one of these issues that, on the one hand, it's very difficult for anyone to object to, but at the same time, it's very hard to keep at the top of people's minds when they're trading off all kinds of different issues. It's very few countries put it top of the list, which is unfortunate, and I think Oxfam certainly did here, and we tried to do what we could. I think it's not going to go away. I think there are still are ways and means, this new committee that's been set up to establish the design of the fund and all those details. We'll be pushing very hard for it to be still included there as relevant, and to make sure, in fact, that resources do ultimately go to women who are not only impacted but also have a key role to play in actually delivering results when it comes to things like adaptation.
And what can we expect to see from Oxfam and other big environmental and development groups in the coming year? What are you going to be campaigning on and lobbying on? What needs to be improved specifically in these texts?
Well, I think the fund has been formally established here, but as I say, there is a design process now that's going to be led by a committee with a majority of developing countries on it. But there are many, many issues that are very important, and you get into the kind of technical design issues as to how the fund is going to function, its relationship to the COP, how it's going to relate to other funding channels, and so on. And so I think we will be following through with that. I mean, our intention as Oxfam is to ensure that the resources that come online through this new fund do effectively become a new paradigm for financial resource flows, to get away from the aid paradigm where it's all about donor accountability or only about donor accountability. And this is one where we're talking about polluters paying, but we're also trying to ensure that there's greater accountability to the people that need the resources, and so to shift that accountability. So we'll be following that very, very closely. We'll also be campaigning in 2011 on food justice issues in the context of resource constraints, and clearly climate constraints is one of many. It affects water, it affects forests, and all kinds of other resources. But at the end of the day, we're going to be trying to ensure that we have a much tighter focus between climate impacts and food insecurity.
And we've just spoken to Wendell Trio of Greenpeace, and he told us that he thought that we'd achieved the best we could have done in the circumstances here. So I'm wondering, what's the best we can hope for next year? Given the momentum we've built here, should we be looking for some kind of global deal next year? We're going to have to start addressing these problems surrounding the Kyoto Protocol and the legal framework. We're going to have to arrive at some kind of definite outcome at some stage. Should we be looking for that in Durban?
Well, I think the best we could achieve. I think we could have gone a little bit better here. I think there were some easy gets that we could have had. I mean, even if it was premature to ask countries to take out the wallet and commit resources. The reality is they've established a fund without any guarantee that it's actually going to be fully funded and have an adequate level of resources. They could have at least agreed a process for discussing the new innovative sources of finance and all the sources of finance really that are needed to ensure that that fund is full, the coffers are full. So that will be something clearly that's going to be on the agenda between now and Durban. That's got to be sorted out, and we will be looking for a decision in Durban that makes the fund operational, and that will have to include something about money in it. But I think the other thing in Durban that's very, very clear, it's going to be the last chance really for governments to commit to the second commitment period of the Kyoto Protocol. The first commitment period expires in 2012. So next year, that's make or break. So I think most definitely we're going to be looking for some decision in that respect. And given the relationship with the LCA, it's going to be very difficult to escape that discussion around legal form. So we'll be looking to see that advance this year so that hopefully, yeah, we can have a legal outcome next year of some form.
And just finally, if you're writing the headlines for the newspapers tomorrow, what will it say?
The headlines, I think, would have to be patient off life support, but danger still present.
Antonio, thanks very much for joining us.
Very welcome.